Hey friend, David here from Learn Christmas Lighting, and in this video I'm going to show you how to push pixels into corrugated props. Yes, this is the fun time. Alright, so you might be able to see behind me actually right there. I've got a Boscoyo Studios snowflake that I've put pixels in. So how do we get there from, well, here, right? I've got a string of pixels here. I've got my Boscoyo prop. This is a string of 50. And now I'm like, okay, what do I do? Well, let's talk about it. So, very first thing you're going to notice with these corrugated props is they have two sides, okay? It might seem self-explanatory, but I'm going to go over it. There's a side right here. You can see here, we've got a hole, and that's the back side, behind the pixel, okay? The side that's totally flat is going to be the front. Now, let's look at that inside of X-Lights. So if we hop on into X-Lights, and you've brought in your model, you can go ahead, just if you're in the Layout tab, you can go ahead and bring Create New Download right here. And then you click that, you press. It brings up this window, which you can then go ahead, grab what you need. Boscoyo Studio Christmas, I go ahead, I find my Chromaflake 24 3-prong, which is what I bought, uses 48 pixels. I got that from Boscoyo's website, or I could count. And now, let's punch it with pixels. So, if we're here in X-Lights, and I'm looking at this flake, and I'll zoom in on it a little bit, obviously, somehow, the computer needs to know where each light is on that snowflake. So how does it know? Well, there's a standard mapping or a standard way to punch the pixels that's actually built in to the download that you got, the custom model. And this is super helpful for two good reasons. One, it verifies that somebody actually went through and they figured out on standard pixels that have about 4-inch spacing, what's the best path to go through these so that you skip some but not others, so that you never have to extend any wire or anything like that. They're always within 4 of each other. Sounds simple, but it's not, because if you just, like on this Chromaflake, if you just went in and you came this way and then you come down, you hit all these, well then you would have to jump from here to here, which is more than that 4 inches of wiring, right? From here all the way to here. Plus, it's across an open space and you'd see that wire really easily. So they've done the thinking for you. And how you can look at it is just by dropping your Chromaflake and then, not really, going into the view, the actual house layout on the Layout tab in X-Lights, right click, Wiring View. Let's make this a little bigger. Now this is your key here, okay? This is where we can see that this is how they want to wire it, okay? I wish you could see the outline of the actual flake, but this gives you a really good idea. So looking at this, I can see that pixel number 1, if I sit my Chromaflake in a way that matches what's on the screen, I can see now that pixel number 1 is literally right here in this portion between two of the legs, right? It's in this armpit of the snowflake per se. And then 2, I can see, if I look at it, well, okay, I've got a straight line of 3 that comes out next. And if I look on the screen, I can see, okay, that straight line of 3 is actually the 8th pixel, then the 2nd, then the 7th pixel. And then at the end here, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and that comes out to be 3, 4, 5, 6 here on the Chromaflake model. You can see, you can really see if you've got your Coro prop in front of you, how this goes. Now, it says here, very important on the screen, that this is the reverse view, which makes sense because you're looking at the back of the prop, the one with the cutout circles on it, and that's how you're punching it through. So that's how you want to look at it. This is opposite of the front view because you're going to turn it around. So with that, let's go punch some pixels. So the first thing I'm going to do is grab my string of 50 here. I'm going to straighten them out real good. I'm going to find my first pixel. Now, it's important to always go the right way. I'm using some square pixels here, and on the back, there's going to be an arrow on these guys. You can see the arrow right here. You should be able to see it pretty good. But there is an arrow, yeah, I think you can see that now, that shows the direction of the data. This is important. Okay, don't just rely on the gender of the plug, but actually go ahead and look at the way the arrow goes. Or if you're on other types of pixels, they may not have an arrow, but they may say DI for the data and DO. DI's data in, DO's data out. And so you'll be able to find your first pixel by finding the first one from a plug at the end of your string that says DI. And if you see hit the end of the wire, you go to the first pixel, it says DO. That's the opposite side of the string. Pretty simple. So I'm just going to go ahead, grab this here. I know it's not the easiest to see on this camera. And punch my first pixel in. Boom. Pretty easy with these square nodes. It's a little harder with the bullet nodes, but they're cheaper, so, you know. The idea is that you don't do this that often, right? If your pixels keep working, if they stay reliable, this will be good. And that actually brings up another point here. In my drawing here, in my layout, rather, in X-Lights, you can't see it because I'd have to exit this, but I have 3 snowflakes on my house, on my porch rails. So I bought 4. That way, I can have a completely assembled extra prop. And that's huge because if something breaks, I want to just be able to unplug that prop, put up a new one if it's reachable, and be done with it. There's no reason for me to have to be out there unpunching and repunching all the pixels or cutting out a few and splicing them. I don't want to do that. I want to take the prop down, take it into my office here, work on it the next day or whenever I feel like it, not be under that pressure. So this was 1. Then I see that this is 8 and then 2 based on my drawing. And then they're going to follow a really simple pattern here, okay? So then we skip 1 and we go to 3 in this particular model. Then we go around the loop, per se. So then we've got 4, 5, 6, and then 7 is coming back up again, coming back up the line into the flake. Then 8, and then 9. So at that point, we've done the basic pattern. Anybody who's built a good model, if it's something like this where it's just the same thing repeating over again, it's going to have that same design over and over again. And so what we're going to do is just punch through the rest of them here. So we go from 9, again, we skip 1 to go to 10, and this again just helps keep the wiring down, because if I had to go from down here all the way back to here, it would not make it, okay? The wire wouldn't make it that distance. It's more than 4 inches. And so that's why we skip every other, because then it'll go here to here to here, and so on. And it just keeps repeating, okay? So let me do the old cooking show adage and grab a finished one and show it to you. Say, oh, our stuff's done in the oven. Oh, and look at that. Wait 30 minutes and our food's done in the oven. No, it doesn't take 30 minutes. Maybe if you're watching TV and you're really into it. But when it's done, it's going to look like this. And so you'll be able to see on the front side, looks nice and clean. You can go ahead, if there's any wire that's kind of sticking out, you can push it back behind. And if there's one that's really particular, you could go in and kind of zip tie these together to keep them hidden. Personally, I just do that if I notice it from like 15 feet away on my display, if I'm at the sidewalk and I can see it. But it's dark, people, and so that's your choice, how much work you want to do there, but I'm kind of lazy. And so now we go ahead, and I'm going to look at my prop here. So I've got my input coming right here off this leg. I've got it finishing up right here, right next to that input, of course. And off of that, I have 2 extra pixels, okay? Because these Chromaflakes take 48 pixels, but I've got 50. And so what I want to do here is I want to go ahead and account for these in X-Lights. So I'm lazy, okay? I could go ahead, I could cut this off, I could put the plug back on via soldering or scotch locks or any of the solder sleeves, whatever, and make a custom string and save, 50 cents, 2 pixels, right? Or maybe 60 cents. But I don't feel like that because it's only 2 pixels, that's 50 cents. I would rather, when I'm building my display, I would rather have that uniformity of saying most of my props, most of my things use 50 count strings because I always want to keep spares around. And if I need a spare string, I would rather it be one of 50 and not one I have to make custom because then it's quicker to fix things, right? So in X-Lights, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to, when I've got my Chromaflakes, I'm just going to do my models like this. I'm coming out of one output of my controller and I'm going to patch it in the channel view, in the models. I'm just going to patch a single line, just a regular line of pixels that has 2 pixels on it. I'm going to call it blackout, okay? Or you could call it null pixel. Doesn't matter. You could do null pixels inside your controller too, but I prefer to do it inside of X-Lights, just then if I had to switch out a controller or something, it's less complicated. And I'd call that model, so I call that model null pixel. I bring it into all of my files. I put it at the bottom. So literally, I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to create it. I'm going to put it at the bottom of everything. And then I'm never going to assign anything to it except black. And I'm going to make that in a group as well inside of X-Lights. Put all my null pixels in there, and then I'm good to go. Piece of cake. So if you guys have enjoyed this, quick subscribe here so you don't miss anything from Learning Christmas Lighting. And then once you do put your prop together, you get it configured in X-Lights, go ahead and at least run a test sequence on this thing. Just like I did in my video about burning in pixels. It's good, I think, once you get them in the prop, you've jiggled around the wires and all that jazz. I think it's really good just to run this thing for a couple hours. Make sure it's good. A bonus, if you have your controller ready with the right output that's going to go to these things, then go ahead, just run a sequence that's got some stuff on it for these Chromaflakes, or pull up a test effect that has something that's circular or that pops out from the center, something where you can really tell if you've punched them all right, because it's going to be something that spins. And then just check to make sure it looks right. Make sure you didn't mess up any of the pixel punching because that can happen. Awesome. If you have enjoyed this, be sure to like this video and subscribe here on Learn Christmas Lighting, and we will be back soon with something new. Thanks.